Hi, I'm Lance Francis reporting for the NB Media Co-op at Wolastokuk, and I'm here at the site of the first ever comic convention in an Atlantic First Nation. Organizers have just announced that LCCon will be returning next year, making it officially the only ongoing comic convention in a First Nation in the country. On Saturday, this arena held many visitors, vendors, and special guests, including actors Adam Beach and Glenn Gould, writer Jason Lawson, and editorial cartoonist Michael D. Adder, and many more. This event also featured a wrestling show put on by Moncton-based Innovative Hybrid Wrestling and a cosplay competition judged by Sue Kim Ouellette. Stay tuned for our highlights.
It's pretty exciting stuff. Turned out really good, and it was fun walking around and seeing all this. This is only my second Comic-Con thing, so honestly, this was the best one I've been to. I only been to two, but this was the best one. I felt like a big happy family. Like it almost felt like a powwow, but cooler. Yeah. So that was fun. It was really good experience. Like I enjoyed today. It was really fun. Yeah. I'm hoping like it comes back next year, and it seemed like it was very successful this year. So hopefully next year we'll see it again, and we'll have it going for years.
I made the whole thing myself out of EVA foam, so it's extremely light but extremely hot.
Extremely hot. Yeah. How does it feel to be walking around in the August heat in this thing?
Oh, it feels great. I do it just because I love it so much, and it's just fun. So you fight the heat.
Big Ninja Turtles fan?
Yes, of course. Isn't everybody?
Oh man, I definitely watched my share of Ninja Turtles.
Yes.
And yeah, definitely. Kids are fascinated by your costume.
It's a lot of fun. It gets a lot of attention, and it's a lot of positive attention.
Some serious footwear right there. How long did it take you to build this thing?
I do it in my spare time, so probably 4 or 5 months, just an hour here, an hour there, and on the weekend or whatever.
Okay.
Then eventually it's done.
Well, I think it's important because we get, kids in First Nations communities don't always get an opportunity to attend something like this or to even know what it is, And I think I think it's important because it'll open their eyes. You got guys like Adam here, myself, that can inspire kids to chase their dreams and find their passion and see people like us who've done the same thing, right? This is my very first Comic-Con event, and it's in a Mi'kmaq community. Yeah. We were talking about this actually, how good it would be to move it around from community to community every year. Which would be really, really, I think, great, to give that exposure to the kids in those communities, and not just kids, adults. There's a lot of adults who are comic fans, television fans, so I think it'd be nice to bring something different to the community that they don't normally get to experience. I think it'd be awesome. Just finished 2 months off from medical leave, so it was nice to be like, okay, I can drive up to New Brunswick and start getting back out in the world a little bit. I suffered a mild stroke in mid-May, so it's been slowly getting back into the groove of things, and so this was nice just to go, okay, I've been home for 2 months.
Yeah, what do you think about the event today?
Fantastic. When I got invited, it was quite a surprise because I didn't even know this was even in existence yet. It just kind of happened really, really quick. And no, I'm so happy to be invited here. It was a great time.
Having a Comic-Con as a first time here in the Mi'kmaq community enables us to connect with the younger generation.
Do you need one of these?
I need to sit because my legs aren't strong enough.
That's yours. Okay, I'm getting thumbs up, all sorts of things. I'm a little disappointed because I was just told I was part of the first presentation, so I thought I was finished, and I was going to stand up here and do what Gordon did and ask you if you had any questions. Unfortunately, I think you're still going to have to listen to me somewhere along the way, somehow, sometime. Meanwhile, I thought, I'm really good at hijacking agendas. Poor Gordon doesn't even know this. But have you noticed there are a couple of empty seats at the front of the room here? Yeah. And I was told that I could probably drag up a goddamn piece of honeymoon. I always have. Have you noticed there are a couple of empty seats? And since I have to stand here and ask if it's okay to stand and speak in the territory of the Wolastokuk people, I was told I could invite the Grand Chief to sit beside me. I would be honored, especially since I'm wearing the clothes off his back. This shirt was a special gift the other day from Grand Chief Ron. And he still hasn't said I can speak, so I'm supposed to shut up until he says, I see you.
Let me, yeah. You talk a little louder, please.
Yes, he's a slow speaker, I'm a low speaker. So, sorry, are the Megamo in the room? Okay, good, got away with that one. I'm just going to say welcome. So tickling, wait a minute. I am incomplete. Come on, please. I almost got away with that.
Slow turtle.
Bingo. So we're tricking you. The government will do it, but I'm going to tell you what I'm up to. So you're now part of a circle. Have a look. And we're going to keep this circle moving. Gordon already exposed what I usually do, and that is I need to involve every voice in the room. Remember what we've always heard about how many people have been involved in the recent discussions about residential schools. We're talking about the voices that are missing. And we're going to keep this circle. Now we've got to start pulling them back. We have a good start. I come to hear Gordon. I don't have to come to hear me. And poor Louis, I feel for you. My wife is here, by the way, if anybody would like to know. I have this lovely lady that is part of my life, and I don't know why she's in a room, because she's my sounding board. We have so much that resonates so that I can use these words. But I'm going to give you one quick rundown of what's happening, how I think I'd like to see this happen, because I don't sit down and plan this. This is not the way I work. And if you could have seen me, 4 o'clock in the morning, something wakes me up and says, here's what you've got to do. So I've got 3 or 4 pages of notes here. Let's start at 4 o'clock in the morning. I know someone else was there. I woke up at 3:59, so it wasn't quite 4. 4 o'clock. I do not know who has that schedule. I do not know who shakes me and wakes me. But I do know that at 4 o'clock in the morning, this world is gone. The things that are filling our heads and keeping us busy so we don't hear the real messages, they're packing us with monitors, voices, propaganda, and it comes from where? Governments, it comes from all over. So this is our opportunity. I know we're like-minded people. I know we think alike. I know what they're going to tell you when you go back out into their world and you're going to take this knowledge. But I want to hear from you. So it's your chance, your opportunity. This is actually your forum. These are leaders. These are real leaders. The native content you see in front of you, nobody has to pay for it. I don't know if you know what that means. The people who pay for the chiefs that are responsible for accepting nuclear, for saying there's no problem, for accepting jobs, bonuses, kickbacks, whatever you want to call it. they're usually elected and promoted by governments. Their paychecks come from government. Who do you think they represent? The people that they claim they're part of and representing? No. So this is why there's power in this room. But it's only going to be powerful if we understand the world we walk in. And I have relied so heavily upon the organizers of this event, the Gordon Edwards of the world, and then I take advantage of it. And I get to sit with someone on the way through Ottawa. And when Gordon Edwards agrees to sit for a breakfast, it didn't matter that the restaurant wasn't there. But I get that a lot with people that are my generation. So what a magical time that we sit, because you just saw the technical component of Gordon Edwards. I got to sit with the human component. And this is where I come from. My name is you, I'm a man, I can be the human. But to hear that in others and to put it into native context, because the real native context is where humanity still resides. That's why they're afraid of us. It's in the land that they're destroying. That's why they're afraid of us. Our connection to the land is real. That's why they're afraid of us. So I want to break into that. Don't be afraid of us. Take advantage of us. There's a difference between use and abuse. Use us. We are open books. We're more than happy to share. And as you know, somebody else is too. So I'm ready to go. We can start with all sorts of things. I was thinking maybe I'll read 3 pages from 4 o'clock in the morning. But no, I'm going to save you from that. I've just given you a gift. That's the only one you're probably going to get. But if I start with Gordon, we're finished, because I'm going to sit here and listen all day. So maybe I'm going to cheat and sneak to the guy whose territory we have a good start, so that we can all be respectful to hear. And I'm not going to corner somebody else, my good friend. So I'm making this a presentation that he didn't expect. But he too is part of everything we've done. He's part of the Cedar group. He's been there for me when we fight for the fish involving fishery. And then on my right is someone who took me into churches and introduced me to the fight that churches are leading when it comes to the native relationship. When they ask you questions like, what is reconciliation? Isn't it amazing they create a question and they ask us what it means? Watch out for those games. Because they've already got the answer, they're going to put it in your head, and when you're finished, it's like, oh, I guess that's what I thought reconciliation was. So don't kid yourself. If you want a hint, if you want a clue, look in the opposite direction. Okay, I said I was going to sit down for a while. I'm here to listen. I'm looking forward to this, but I need to hear from everybody. So let's get going, because we don't have a whole lot of time. And I would love to hear you just kickstart the process and move it around the room. Thank you, sir. Do you want to go?
I remember several years ago, Hugh gave me a call, said, I want to invite you to the United Nations in New York City, to the Indigenous Permanent Forum. So I went, thinking, wow, the United Nations, what an awesome concept. What a privilege to go to and to be part of United Nations. What an oxymoron that I found out. And he never told me what to expect. He was an open book. He's seen me I just walk around and listen, and I even had this shirt on, something about Wabanaki people and stuff. As I walked in, the security person said, "You can't wear that in here."
Yeah.
I said, pardon? He said, "You can't wear that shirt because you're demonstrating something." I said, "But it's United Nations," and he said, "If you argue with me, you'll never step in this building again." So I'd have to turn my shirt inside out. She said, "If we see you in there, you will be kicked out."
Wow.
So I remember going in, and I went back in the bathroom, and I turned it back around again. And then I got kicked out. But just sitting there, and what I experienced and witnessed was so disheartening. Who was really in command there? We had indigenous people from all over the world who some were selected, some were not selected, because you have to write in your proposed issue that you wanted to talk about, and if you were chosen, you got 3 minutes to vent about what's going on back on your homeland. And keep in mind, the majority of these groups were led by grandmothers, indigenous women. And listening to their stories were heartbreaking and were very parallel to what's happening back here. Some a little more advanced, some behind what's happening here, but it was very, very parallel events happening. And the disturbing thing is the majority of the mines that are going into indigenous homelands and exploiting resources were from Canada. What was shocking to find out, because everybody claims Canada's such an amazing place to live. It's, well, so that was really shocking to hear. And then eventually to find out who was really in command at the United Nations. And who held the largest voice was the World Bank. There. They had unlimited time to respond to anything that was being said, where each indigenous group had only 3 minutes to talk about their issues. And I remember this indigenous man from Australia, and he said, "I have 3 minutes to tell you what's going on." He said, "We have the elders who, because of the drought, have to wash themselves in these baby wipes. That's their shower." He said, "We have no water. It hasn't rained in months there." So anyway, he said, "I have 3 minutes to tell you this, while a lot of our elders are dying back home. And then you'll have a company or states coming and talking and telling you that what I'm telling you is not true." And just to let you know, I'm not going to go on, but that we went there for 5 years, and each time we went, we sat on a bus, because we took a bus from either Portland or Bangor all the way to New York City. So Chief, you and I had a lot of time to talk about going there and then coming back. And there was a gentleman we met, I think the first or second year. His name was Tupac. He's from South America or Central America, but I think he lived in California. And he was on the verge of starting an indigenous United Nations, because he knew that what was actually happening there they were listening to what we had to say, but they weren't hearing us. There's a difference. So So he was ready to create a council and start talking about forming United Nations at the Indigenous level, and that we as Indigenous people have to have our voices heard, and we can go directly to Geneva rather than go through the state of New York and United Nations through that. And then COVID hit. It shut down everything. And that's the last time Chief Hugh and I went was 2018, I believe. And then we haven't been back, and we kind of lost contact with all the people when we're starting to build this momentum of creating an Indigenous United Nations. So my daily routine in the morning and the evening is very, very simple, and it's is that I wake up and I make sure that I give total gratitude to all life and all levels of life, from the center of the earth to as high as we can see in the universe. And I'm so grateful for every portions and sections of earth, from the central core where our heart is to the surface and all the way up to the universe. And I take my time in voicing and putting forward thoughts of gratitude, and I ask them to reach out to humanity and teach us again, because we lost along the way this connection of how to be human. We have become really bad stewards of the earth. And all of us, I shouldn't say some of us, all of us in this room know what it is to be good stewards, but it's the people that hold these so-called powers to be at certain levels of government and industries who think what is best for us. So I just wanted to say those things for now, and then there's a few more people that need to talk, and who can probably talk longer than I can.
I can hold it.
Yeah, well, just a couple of quick comments, because Ron's magic continues when he started taking young people with us. 8 young people or more the last 2 years to the UN to work with this whole scenario, and we're paying dividends from that today. So all of the things that he said, except for the fact that there's somebody who can speak longer, probably very true. So well, he can speak longer. But I also remembered that we were here for a reason, and we're on the agenda for a reason, and that reason is we're supposed to have dialogue. So I'm going to hijack your agenda by going to Gisatanamuk. Yes, he's not getting out of this. And then I'd like to have a quick dialogue with Gordon, because I told you that this started in such a way that I realized that the times I get to sit or talk to Gordon, they've even put me on a phone to you, and those conversations, I don't think you understand how important they are to me, my people, and what I'm doing. But I often end with, I wish everybody could hear these conversations. And that's when I thought, maybe we can share some of it. So I'll go to Gisatanamuk, slip to Gordon and I, and then I'll try to get to as many people in the room as I possibly can. I'd love to hear some of yours. And by the way, Indigenous peoples, we work with stories. Tell us your story. So I'm going to turn somebody into the mic man.
I'll just hold it. You want to hold it? You can hold it.
Golly. You probably have an indication by my gestures that I don't want to be here, taking up time. But if there's ever a possibility where we can have this kind of time together, I would certainly welcome that. But we have a schedule, There's a clock that's ticking. And all I want to say is that we have much more power than we think we have. And those of us who align with that power, that whatever this nightmare and this melodramas that we're having to deal with is overcomable. And I see that every day. So I'm going to turn it back. Thank you.
Excuse me, before you leave the micro, can you tell us more, a little bit about you? Because I don't know you, it's the first time I see you.
We'll talk after. How's that?
That's my question.
You're dumping the queue, lady. Yes. No, we're an open mic. We're going to get to everybody. Sometimes the best conversations occur outside the room. Don't hesitate. Nothing ends in this room. You corner him, and then your day's finished. But that's the way you get the rest of this story.
He doesn't share the same bathroom.
Well,
that's wrong.
okay, sometimes there's too much information in the room. However, Gordon, I'm going to start by saying you have done something incredible the way you shared your knowledge. If I could say to this world, I've met the human being, can you please tell me what I mean?
Well, I think we're all human, and that's what we have to recognize. I was very recently, Chief Justice Sotomayor was on television, and she said, you mustn't judge people by their opinions. Everybody has different opinions. We're all human, and there's that human level, and anybody can change their opinions. I left high school thinking nuclear power was great, because I was told it was clean, safe, cheap, and abundant. I said, well, great. Why wouldn't you want it? And it was only when I found out, after graduating from university with a gold medal in mathematics and physics, I found out nobody ever told me there were radioactive wastes. Why didn't they tell me? Why were the politicians who built these things told that, by the way, there's a problem? We don't know what to do with the radioactive waste. They were not told. So it means that this enterprise was launched in dishonestly, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
And that dishonesty, as a human, it offends me. And I think I share my information with other people because I think they should. I don't try and tell people what to think or tell them that my opinion is this and you should adopt it. I try to provide information that will help them to form their own opinion. And I feel that when people know that they're not being dealt with in an honest way, they'll respond as I do and as you do. That's basically where I come from. My biggest shock to me was in 1970, hold on now, I'll just make sure I get the 1976. In 1976, India exploded an atomic bomb using a Canadian nuclear reactor that we gave them as a gift. Now, I, as a scientifically trained person, I graduated from the University of Toronto. How come I didn't know that there was a connection between civilian nuclear efforts and military? I was distinctly led to believe that there was no connection. No, this is not the bomb. This is nuclear. This is for peaceful purposes. And so it was a real shock to realize that on such a fundamental level, to be lied to be misinformed. I found that, I figured, well, I was actually set in motion by another person who I heard speak in Montreal. He was a world-famous mathematician who was visiting there. And he spoke out very loudly about how we scientists, he said, we scientists have an obligation to humanity to share our knowledge and demystify science so that they and we together can cope with the problems facing the planet. Because the whole planet is at risk, and a lot of it has to do with science and technology, and a lot of it has to do with is that people don't have the necessary understanding And so we have an obligation. So he got me going in terms of saying, I felt in my heart that he was right. And that, what did that mean about myself? I said, well, I should be doing that. I should be sharing my knowledge. So we formed a group together called Survival. I published for many years a magazine called Survival Magazine, which was about the survival of the planet, not just humanity, but all living things on the planet, because we're really jeopardizing the entire planet, not just ourselves. And so that's really what got me on the road. And I've always found in dealing with the Indigenous people I have dealt with in Ontario, Quebec, and elsewhere, that they have a deep spiritual connection to the land that we're lacking. I mean, it's such an elementary thing that's so common in Indigenous communities that water is sacred. Yes. And why is it we, educated people, us scientists, why don't we regard water as sacred? We should. So the idea of transcendent values, it's not just all mechanics, and it's a question of the wisdom of being able to understand the importance of all this to nourishing life.
Thanks, Gordon. That's just a flavor of the conversations I've been having with this character. And even that last statement, think about it. We are confusing wisdom with intelligence. They throw in the word knowledge to make it sound like they know what they're talking about. So they're going to collect all our knowledge, Indigenous knowledge, and when they take it, digitize it, bring it back to us, we don't know what we're looking at. And the connection that Gordon's talking about is quite simple. If I can bring this down to earth for you, 14,000 years in this territory, according to your rules, your scientists, your archaeologists, that's our footprint. That's DNA. That's connection. 400 years. How does that compare? And yet all the history here seems to be around 400 years. Well, this is where reality has to hit the road. And you're only going to get that when folks start telling you the truth. That was one of my questions here is, at what point, where do you hear what you just heard in this room? Who is telling you the truth? Ironically, a lot of the people that are lying to you don't know the truth. They believe the lies. But most cases, there's an agenda. So one of the things I thought about last night that is pertinent to all of this, I'm always impressed that when we go out into the world today, or tonight, or whatever we do, and you turn on televisions, and I know I'm old, and I know the program's long gone, but do you remember this character Seinfeld who sent messages around the world by doing a program about nothing? Does anybody ever think of what that really means? Well, I've got news for you. Today we're here talking about everything. And look at the few people that are really listening. So I think there's a lot more to be said on this, but I would like to just quickly go around the room. Does anybody know what our timeline actually is? Yes, she does. Miss Knowledge. How is it, 5 minutes? Oh boy, you guys have 5 minutes. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 10. Okay, I need your 10 seconds.
Better than the UN.
Ooh. Just quickly, I'm going to enjoy doing this. 10 seconds. Tell us, okay, here's a question I've been putting out to the world. How do we save this planet?
Oh my goodness. We hope that the Indigenous people can lead us in the right direction.
Thank you.
Open our hearts.
That's not as simple as you said. You make it look.
Continue to fight without despair.
I thought you said you didn't have enough time to give us your word of wisdom. Thank you.
begin to think that understanding and choosing the right things is not the same thing.
Thank you for that, certainly.
Community and collaboration.
No problem.
We let the people run the system, not entities.
You'll stay away from government.
I will say talk like the truth and work together with like humility.
Thank you. I want you beside me.
Action.
I haven't hung around you too long.
Fight the billionaires and oligarchs.
And you got the tools to do it, mister. Yes, ma'am.
Coming together with action.
Thank you. Come together right now.
Reconnect to the earth.
You're way ahead of us.
Keep talking and be patient and kind.
Why is that so hard for humans?
Actively invite others into the real world that you see at 4 a.m.
Good luck with that one.
Tolérance. Tolérance.
All the? To all the? To
Compassion and kindness.
That's again.
Learn to share.
Again, thank you.
Yeah, speak deeply from the truth that Edward was speaking of, deep down value.
Yes. This from a man that knows how to build a birch bark canoe.
Learn how we are being influenced and controlled, and use means that are effective to fight what, well, not, I don't want to fight, I want to use find a method, use the method that is effective to stop this.
Yeah, and she's got the rest of the program if anybody wants to hear it later.
Make space for us to grieve in community.
Thank you. Come on, Cecilia.
Benefit from the open hearts and mind from our young kids and connect them with wisdom.
Her kid's a perfect example.
Listen to discover the values that connect us so that we can make connections with others for making a better world.
You get my vote when you run for government? From what you've heard, folks, one last comment.
I agree.
Well, coming back to you, Gordon, because it's our conversation. Bonnie.
To honor the 1725-26 peace and friendship treaties. We'll start with that.
Thank you. Yes, we should have started there. Gordon, the opportunity you provided, having you here in person, what a treat. I'm so grateful that you're in our territory. You're always welcome here, just like all of you. This is what he's just told you. These are our treaties. This is our promise. We're keeping it as we speak. I would love to have this man in my territory. Can we get you out of Montreal? Do you know how? But in all honesty, we need to hear more from you and from others. And I'm going to say, the voices we heard, I'd like to think that you're empowered to take these messages out there and do just what we're trying to do. Let's get it out there. Because everybody thinks that oral history belongs to natives. I'm sorry, folks, but you're now part. I'm not sorry for this. You're part of our oral history. Thomas King, 2003, Massey lecturer said, I gave you the story. It's yours. The power is in the story and getting it out. So they can't hide anymore. Oops. And I want to give Gordon the last word, because Gordon...
I'd like to emphasize what the chief has just said about oral history. We underestimate our own power. If you were able to influence just 2 people in your circle of friendship or collegiality, just 2 people that are so inspired by what you say that they are in turn motivated to influence 2 other people, you have started a chain reaction. And the power of interpersonal interaction and personal messaging, personal value of communication is enormous. And I often remind people that, apartheid was overthrown without access to media. They didn't have the media on their side. They didn't have the power on their side. They did it through word of mouth and through their actions, because word of mouth is useless without action. And it's a combination of word of mouth and action that is really powerful. The Soviet Union came down despite all odds against it. And that is the kind of change that can be brought about when people got to shake off the feeling of impotence. You're not at all impotent. It's just a question of getting that chain reaction going.
Tiffany.
It's done, but you know.
Where do we go next?
stories and always have had conversation in the community. And also we are in the process of having our policy conference. And today's workshop will be on really inclusion and inclusivity. And my name is Gül Çalışkan, and I'm one of the two project leads. My colleague, Dr. Sophie Lava, is also project lead. I will just now turn to Sophie to continue.
Sure. You can follow along on your sheet here that you have. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our project and what we do, so to get us started in terms of the conversation that we'd like to have. So Dr. Kalishkan mentioned the name of the project, which is Promise of Home, and what Promises Home does is it analyzes stories to get grassroots policy recommendations. So the project started in 2019 when it was actually student-led. A student got a bursary to start looking at getting stories for his work term in the summer of 2019, and that expanded into the larger project that we're almost finishing now. First, the project looked to teenagers who are recent newcomers and invited them to workshops. And in those workshops, they started telling their stories. Unfortunately, that was 2020, and the project got interrupted by the COVID pandemic. But the group of students from the local high school, who were mostly Syrian, Somali, Iranian, and some second generation Canadian, but from various immigrant backgrounds, managed to come together and tell their stories. And so our first phase has 11 stories of these young participants telling about their experiences of immigration, their experience of belonging here in Fredericton, and just some of them shared, for example, poems and things like that. You can see all of those as QR codes on your materials where you can link to some of the materials that we have where the participants are telling the stories. Then the second phase moved on to adults and families, and we invited, once again, people from a variety of different immigrant backgrounds to participate. And in that phase, we got 17 people to tell their stories, and we have, as a result, 15 stories. The two couples decided to tell their stories together. So we have 15 stories, and in that second phase, we got people together every Saturday for 6 weeks, came together, we gave them prompts, we worked with them, and they worked together. And one of the great things about the first and second phase was creating community within the people from different immigrant backgrounds, where people were coming together, meeting each other, hearing shared stories, and of course, understanding each other better. So we, after each of phase 1 and phase 2, we had launches where we showed the stories to the larger public. And now the goal of that, showing the stories to the larger public, was actually to engage with what we call longtime Frederictonians. So these are people who have been here for a longer amount of time, and obviously there's a racialized component to that, where there's mostly people of a white or European descent who have been here for a long time and might have a very specific idea about immigrants and immigration. And at our community conference in 2023, we got people together and had workshops and discussions about the stories and then people's reactions to the stories, and through those discussions developed 6 pillars that showed up as places where there might be challenges or obstacles to immigration. A starting point for the discussion is, of course, the fact that 50% of immigrants to New Brunswick who come here leave within the first 5 years of being here. So why are so many people leaving? What is it that they're not finding here in New Brunswick? So when we had that community conference, we invited long-term Frederictonians to view the stories, and of course all of the communities, our participants as well. and develop these 6 barriers that show some of these obstacles or challenges. And then as the second stage of phase 3, our research assistants did a little bit of a scan about what policies are in place with different government levels, different community groups to actually welcome immigrants to Fredericton. And so between the actual stories of immigrants, where immigrants told us some of their obstacles, and the policies that are supposed to govern what happens when people come here, we sort of are finding the middle ground. And that is what we're going to be doing in November. We have a conference coming up November 21st and 22nd, where we're again going to bring in stakeholders and talk about these 6 pillars that we've found, and see what policy recommendations can actually come to us to move towards our final phase 4, which is building these policy grassroots policies that we can then say come from our community to try to make the sense of belonging better. So in this phase 3, these community discussions are very much a part of what we do. We usually show one of our stories here. You can see some of the stories. If you have a little bit of time, you can watch the trailers. Some of them are like around 2 minutes. And then the stories, which vary in length between 5 minutes to sometimes 40 minutes in length, depending on, because they were really led by the people who were actually telling them. And then create this kind of space for discussion about, what are the impediments to making Fredericton and New Brunswick a more inclusive society, and that's where you come into this discussion about having this.
Can I, of course, as another layer of these community discussions, we have been doing some focus group discussions in the community. We have done so far about 19 of them. We are not counting this one because this is a part of another community event, but in those gatherings, what we do, collect consent and we record the discussions. And the questions we will discuss this afternoon are coming from mainly those community discussions. Where do we take those discussions? We have been taking them to the spaces that are not open primarily and for immigrants, yet in the meantime becoming more and more diverse. Like worship places, like community colleges, like hobby places, sports spaces, and daycares. So those spaces were not originally and necessarily formed immigrants, newcomers, or racially diverse folks, new Canadians in mind, but nonetheless, they are becoming diverse. So that's what we have been doing, and they are also supporting our findings from stories. The challenges they mention are similar challenges that new Canadians face and express in the stories and in the interviews we have done with them. So, but we have almost concluded them. Now we are geared towards our community conference, which will be, as Dr. Lava said, November 21st and 22nd. And in the booklet, you will find more information on that. Please do register for that. Although it's free, we would like to know how many people are coming so that we can prepare accordingly. And now I think we can start.
Yeah, what do you think? Sure. So what we're going to do is a little bit of introductions, and then we have question prompts that if you feel comfortable thinking about or answering the questions that we have, we'll go from there. So my name is Sophie Lavoie, as I said earlier. I'm somebody who was born in Mi'kma'ki and grew up also in Mi'kma'ki in what's now known as Nova Scotia. And I'm from a white European settler background.
My name is Gül Çalışkan. I was born and raised in Ankara, Turkey, and I have been Canadian since 1999. I have been calling different places home. The more I move around, the more diverse the meaning of home became, and it has also become difficult to really answer the question, where are you from? You know, so I am from wherever I connect with people, wherever my family is. And my family also includes my adopted families wherever I go. So that's what home means to me, my connections and people I got to love and call family.
Would you like to go next?
My name is Carolyn, and I have lived within 100 kilometers of here all my life.
Thank you so much for
I am a volunteer with United for Literacy, and a volunteer with newcomers, with English as an additional language, and just want to relate more.
Do you want to go next?
So my name is Sema, and I'm originally from Egypt. I came to Canada in 2019. I first came to Ottawa and then moved here to New Brunswick. It has been a challenging 5 years, but I navigated and adapted. I started my initiatives here in New Brunswick alongside Jana and Charlotte sitting next to me here. And yeah, I can't wait to see Brunswick thrive with more newcomers and thrive with more diversity.
Thank you.
My name is Jana. I'm also from Egypt and I've been living here for 5 years. Before that, I also lived in Norway. So, you talking about going to a lot of places and the definition of home, becoming more diverse, that's something that really resonates with me. It's something that I spent pretty much all of the summer thinking about. I went back home and I was like, so I was kind of pondering the question, where is home? What is home?
My name is Charlie. I was born in Chicago and I moved here when I was 5, around 2013. I mostly have European settler descent.
I'm Joan McFarland. I also am settler descent. I lived 2 places most of my life. The first part of my life I lived in Victoria, British Columbia, and the second part I've lived in Fredericton, New Brunswick.
Phil Blaney from St. John, New Brunswick. First generation, my parents immigrated from England in the 60s.
Thank you.
I'm Bethany. I'm from the unceded territory of the Wolastokuk Nation. We're outside of St. John and spent time in, I guess, 4 or 5 other provinces. But yeah, Fredericton feels most like home, and would love to. Yeah, I guess my ancestry is mostly from Wales and other parts of England, and I would like to see this place more welcoming and inclusive, because I have friends who have moved from war-torn countries who came here and weren't able to find job security and were forced to move elsewhere, despite kind of trying to support them in some ways. But yeah, it's very challenging. So I'm grateful for your work.
Thank you so much, everyone. Now we will start our questions, and we tend to not go one by one. We will invite raising your hands, because you don't have to answer every question. If you feel hesitant, you don't have to. We will be making eye contact, so it doesn't mean we're just kind of a little invitation to talk maybe, but please feel free to pass any question or add later, talk twice, doesn't matter in that stage.
So our first question is with regards to intentions. Is there any particular reason why you were interested in participating in this workshop today, or what made you kind of want to attend this workshop personally?
Why are you here in this right now?
Would anybody like to share? I think some of you have already shared your reasons.
Well, I've been following this project from the beginning, so I'm interested in where it has developed.
Yes.
That's attracted me today.
Yes.
Anyone else? It's okay. All right, so this one's a little bit more heavy. How would you describe your experience with diversity in New Brunswick? Have you experienced or witnessed diversity in New Brunswick?
Well, some of you talked about the navigating challenges and not looking, but do they want to talk?
Yes, go ahead.
It definitely has been a bumpy road. There has been some good experiences and very bad experiences. I would say my experiences would definitely be centered in school, attending high school here and middle school here. Diversity is something often overlooked, and it's something brought by the students. It's not something ingrained in the systems. It's not something ingrained in the bureaucracy and the policies as well. And so when you realize that, it becomes really challenging and exhausting. These beautiful folks here, we've tried to challenge a lot of things in our school, but they're often turned down because the priority goes to the policy, the priority goes to following the bureaucracy. And so the heavy weight of trying to make things inclusatory and more diverse is often falling on the shoulders of the students, which could be exhausting but also rewarding. And so yeah, it has been a really overlooked issue, and it's not talked about as often. It's very hard to have to remind people that, hey, here's diversity, here's inclusion, here's equity. It's not something ingrained in our schools or in our systems or in the way of life. We acknowledge that there are newcomers, we acknowledge that there are different cultures, but that's it. Do we do something about it? Not often. So it's very hard to see.
May I ask a follow-up question?
Yes.
How do you folks define diversity in that context, and what kind of work did you do in that context?
So into grade 10, 11-ish, Jan and I co-founded first cultural club, Arabian Roots in Fredericton High School. When we came to the school, there wasn't really much of a cultural awareness or cultural diversity. And so since that, we brought it upon ourselves and we said, we want to make the school more inclusive and more diverse. We want people to be heard, right? We want to make it a space that when next generations come, find that we did not find at the time. And so that was the starting point of many initiatives that we took on, like decorating for Ramadan, creating a Ramadan gala as well. So having these different initiatives going on kind of brought life to diversity in our school that we did not see when we first came. Do you want to add more, Jana?
I think you covered everything. I'll just keep it brief. Usually when like diversity initiatives are, run by the school itself, like managed by the administration, for instance, they seem to be very performative. Like they're there, great, lovely, but they're not really achieving anything. And like we keep talking about like how FHS, for instance, have like what's the number? Like we have a lot of like
20
we have like students from a lot of different cultural backgrounds, and that's always or usually something that like the school takes pride in. But there isn't much that goes beyond that. Like right now we have like the what's the day? Cultural.
We have cultural day.
The cultural day, yeah. But that's also like run by students. That's not like a school run thing.
The logistics are run by the students, bringing people for performances are run by the students. Arranging the day is run by students, and having the setup is also run by students. And so, yeah, coming back to the point where I said it always usually falls on the students, which isn't bad. It's always a rewarding thing, but seeing that it's just one-sided is not effective to bringing inclusivity to.
It is a rewarding thing until it feels like a responsibility, and that's what it usually eventually becomes.
Yeah.
Any reflective thoughts on what Jenna and shared?
I really appreciate you sharing. Very brave, and you've done a lot of work. It's inspiring. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I've done a couple of short training sessions on the like EDI concept, like equity, diversity, and inclusion, and just the difference between those words. And to me, diversity is, and from the lessons which I've been part of, or diversity is just the reality of different people being there together. Like you're saying, like diversity comes from the students just being different, and it's not something that school necessarily changes, but in a workplace, I guess, if you're attracting diverse talent, but then making sure that people are supported to stay there, I guess diversity could fluctuate depending on how supportive the environment is, and I guess the same for schools too. But I think inclusion is that sense of belonging, and that seems to be what's lacking from the school as well, from that situation of not having the right support necessarily through policy and through teacher or other administrative advocates for making sure that there's kind of a respectful space and environment. And I would say that that's lacking in a lot of workplaces as well, that I've noticed, so that the diverse talent feels unsupported and ends up leaving. And there seems to be more diversity at like a lower pay grade than in upper management from the organizations that I've been a part of or with. Yeah.
So it seems like it's resonating with some of us, at least, this performative parts of doing diversity work, right? Any other observations in terms of your own spaces? How do you experience it, and how do you overcome it, maybe? What do you do to overcome and experience and witness diversity? Is there any other contribution to that?
Sure. So in imagining, in a lot of the workshops that have happened over the weekend, there's been a lot of like visioning and imagining like a better Fredericton, a better world, with more solidarity and things like that. In terms of what that means for our project, so how does New Brunswick, our next question is, how does New Brunswick help create a welcoming space for everyone? What do we do? Yes, what do we do? We've been working on this project to try to examine that, but what are some of the other things that we can do within, apart from creating burnout in those people who are doing the work themselves?
You are doing some incredible work in terms of supporting newcomers with language, right? So would you like to reflect on that a little bit?
Well, speaking of United for Literacy, we run a program at George Street School, and also I do one-on-one tutoring with a couple of newcomers at a time. And we have a Saturday morning group that brings a bunch of people together. There's usually between 20 and 30 people, and people come and go, but there's a core group of people that have become really tight and supportive of each other, I guess.
Do you experience some students becoming further more involved with supporting the new
Yes,
Canadians
yes.
after them, right? So
Definitely,
Yeah.
that's the biggest part of it.
That's wonderful. And by the way, United for Literacy is a great supporter of our project. We did focus group in that space.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Like, how do we do? Do we do good? What are some good examples do you have? But by the way, you can reflect on the questions. These are pretty open questions, so even though we are talking, answering another question, if you can think of anything, please do reflect and talk about them. Next one, Sophie.
All right. And some of you started answering this, but hopefully we can explore this a little bit more. What elements do you think are holding back creating more inclusive spaces in New Brunswick? I mean, besides the fact that people are leaving, what else is holding back creating those more inclusive spaces? Yeah, Jenna?
The two main things for me, I would say, is like ignorance and like being scared of changing the status quo. And when you put the two things together, it just like makes it a lot worse, because like if you are ignorant, you don't know anything, you have like these already pre-established biases, and I don't mean you, I just mean and then on top of that, you're also like kind of scared to learn or know or like have discussions that you may not be very comfortable with, and you just want to keep things the way they are. Then it's just like kind of holds everything back, and no one wouldn't want to like change anything, even if there are people who are trying to change or doing things. Like I would say, like this was our main kind of struggle, is that like yes, we have so many ideas, yes, so we have so many things, but like navigating the system and like navigating the system with people who have like those kind of mindsets, who are scared to change things, just like makes everything a lot slower, worse, harder.
Yeah. Do you think there's a link between the ignorance and the fear?
Definitely, yeah. Because I feel like fear comes from ignorance, because if you don't know things, then you're obviously not going to be very comfortable with changing things. I feel like fear, uncomfort, and ignorance are just like kind of a loop that are like linked together. So like if you tackle one of them one at a time, then that would probably be like the best thing, and that I feel would probably take a lot of time to do for some people, but I guess that's how things are.
Yeah. As a racialized professor myself, I often have the sense, I talk to my other colleagues who are white settler background, who has white settler background, they often express white students have different kind of conversations with them about their fear, their ignorance, more expressive than they would be with me, because of fear of me misunderstanding them, not like they are afraid of me or anything like that. Now I'm turning to folks who have settler background, white settler background. Do you have those kind of experiences with your own families, friend groups, work groups, that you have different kind of conversations that we wouldn't have, you know? Like I always wonder that, because when we are in the room, it's kind of different still. Do you have any examples you would like to share, or what happens in those conversations in terms of fear, ignorance, and not trying to let go of status quo and power, maybe? You don't have to speak to a particular space, but would you like to give some examples?
I don't know if I can really think of an example for that, but I think a barrier that I was thinking of for the previous question would be like the Medicare system. Like I think there's a huge gap when people first arrive to Canada, they don't have a Medicare card, they don't have access to Medicare until they have a job, and they need to be like vetted by the organization they're going to work for their permanent residency, or I don't know all the ins and outs of the program, just know from talking with immigrant friends, but yeah, like one of my friends had to go to the hospital, so I brought her there, but it's costly to even just get an assessment because she had no Medicare card, so it's like, yeah, that's on top of every other barrier, including language and yeah, just trying to support her family. She also had this cost. Yeah, so that's certainly a barrier. I think just navigating the system and trying to be prepared for when you arrive. There's so many barriers that it at one point for her became insurmountable, and she had to move. So if we could address that.
Yeah.
But in terms of your question about like different races, I guess, or like being more comfortable speaking with folks who look like you, is that kind of what you're getting at? Yeah. I think there's some truth to that. I don't know how to overcome it, but I think it's just a matter of experience, like kind of maybe more familiarity with somebody's background and being able to relate in a different way. But I think the more different people we meet, the more comfortable we could become.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be more authentic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the elements holding back creating more inclusive spaces, just the narrative of New Brunswick, that it's a English, French province, but if you look at our history, I mean, you know, we had the peace and friendship treaties with the indigenous people here, and we don't talk about that. The history of the abolitionist movement in New Brunswick, well, back then when we were in Nova Scotia, was New Brunswick part of Nova Scotia. But, you know, those moments in our history that really have shaped the country and the world. I mean, without the success of the abolitionist movement in here, you know, that leads to the abolitionist movement in the United States, the end of slavery in the United States, and all that, and those campaigns that were used during the abolitionist movement, you know, that leads to the ANC struggle in South Africa, you know. So, I mean, if we had more conversations about the actual history of New Brunswick beyond French and English, it maybe opens the doors to a deeper conversation about, you know, multicultural and diversity and what it can lead to, what it can accomplish.
That's really wonderful. Yes.
Kind of connected to what he's saying. Often when we're learning about history, and I'm talking through my experience in high school, because that's where I am right now. Well, I'm done high school, but yeah. When we're talking about history, we're always focusing on the same things over and over and over again. So with like truth and reconciliation, for example, we don't do truth and reconciliation at school. We talk about residential schools and the struggles, which is great. Everyone needs to know about that. But we just keep learning about it, same thing, every single year. And then I find, or through my experience, what I have seen that do is students kind of thinking, well, I already know about this, why do we have to keep talking about this all the time? Which I think is pretty valid if like we're just talking about the same thing and we're not like kind of taking the conversation and moving forward. And then also, I found that for some people, they would be like, well, I wasn't there, I didn't do this, why am I responsible? Like, why do I have to do anything about it? Which I'm not sure if it's like a valid comment or thing to believe, but I also see where it's coming from, like considering like how we're taught and like how the conversation is brought in schools sometimes. So I'm not justifying that, like thinking that way, but like the way that we're taught kind of leads to that. So it's not, I wouldn't say that it's completely like the individual's, fault to think that way, but it's also the system that we just keep doing the same thing over and over, and we're not actually learning, we're just like in a state of repetition.
Yeah, thank you. This is kind of relevant to our next question. Like the history, being aware of it, like how can we make that connection truly? What would it take to do those connections and not understanding everyday encounters within that connection, if that makes sense, right? Our actions, activities, or belief. So the question is, what changes could we make to make New Brunswick feel more welcoming, especially for newcomers who are coming to the province, in connection to history that you both articulated? We can start from there maybe, or any other comment, any other discussion. What should we change collectively? Policy, yes.
I mean, coming back to the schools again, I like everything about FHS especially is focused on like the white Canadian experience, and then sometimes we kind of add in like Culture Day or Truth and Reconciliation Day again. So like, for example, I'm a part of the choir at FHS, but other people are comfortable, and this is something that I'm working on changing. We sing Christian songs, we don't really sing other religious songs. We sing Christmas songs, we sing Christian songs for Remembrance Day. So it's just, we celebrate Christian holidays. The history is European history, so it's all focusing on, like, there's not enough focus on other people's histories and other people's experience. So when people aren't heard and people aren't valued through the curriculum, through the clubs, and just the way that everything is set up, I feel like that is so, like, it just shows, it makes people feel like not welcome, and then their voices and their culture isn't part of the community or isn't part of the HS, and it isn't important to, I don't know, kind of put effort into, which is really problematic. So I feel like kind of taking a look at how much of the experience of our schools and our communities is centered around being a white settler, and what that means for people who aren't white settlers and how they're experiencing that, and how we can bring forward other cultures and how other people are experiencing the way that we talk about things. Then that'll be helpful.
Yeah. I want to just kind of connect this. I didn't get your name, but Charlie. What you were saying, like these kind of maybe performative actions or performances in general, they are also making white settler experience as if it is one and not diverse. It's also, right? So it's kind of not serving anyone maybe. Anyway, when you were talking about that, I thought of that too. Like it's kind of further perpetuating how we see history, for instance. Not with its diversity or its challenges it faces. Anyone else?
I did want to expand on what you're talking about with the peace and friendship treaties, like, because I think that is a big part of the answer is like, every Canadian needs to understand really what that means, like what the peace and friendship treaties were intended for. I work with the Beskodamagati Nation at Skudix, Chief Huakaji, and like the word for treaty in Latin means tractatus, or is tractatus. That's the root word of treaty, which means bargaining and manipulating. And the word in Beskodamagati and Wolastokuk is lakutuwakan, which means to make family, to extend your family. So those two worldviews are so diametrically different, so you can kind of understand why there might be all these misunderstandings, and of course stolen land and broken promises, because the view of what the treaty was supposed to do didn't happen in a way that the Wabanaki peoples promised in their oral tradition. So they've upheld their end, but the settlers did not, and continue not to honor those treaties. And I think if we did, then newcomers would feel welcome, because there would be a culture of peace and friendship here. Like, you know, there would be, people would be more welcomed to enjoy and to live in peace, and to have access to what we all are able to enjoy by being here on this land that, you know, we were welcome to without be, you know, as a white person, I'm saying this, as, you know, without necessarily upholding our end of the peace part. So, yeah.
Celebrate those key moments. Like, I think this year, I think, is the 300th anniversary of the first Peace and Friendship Treaty, and I'm really not aware of anything New Brunswick or any municipalities are doing to celebrate that. You know, one of the founding key in the founding of what is New Brunswick that we know of New Brunswick today. You know, without those treaties, we probably wouldn't be here. You know, or God forbid, we might be part of the bloody United States of America.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, it's something that should be recognized, celebrated. You know, we have the Lowest Day celebration, and we have the Tanchamar, the Acadie and whatnot, and you know, we commemorate the expulsion of the Acadians. We remember all those events, but things like the first Peace and Friendship Treaty was from here all the way down to Massachusetts, I think, maybe even farther. There's no recognition of that. Not really that I'm aware of.
I don't know, do we really want to celebrate it?
Well, commemorate, it's key, yes, commemorate, remember it, that, you know, what could have been if we had actually kept our word. I mean, you know, right now, we sign treaties, trade treaties all over the world, and if you violate that, God help you, but our treaties we signed with Indigenous people, we violated from the beginning, we continue to violate. You know, why aren't those treaties the sacrosanct to these trade treaties that we have today, and they should be?
Jenna, you had your input?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that if we as like New Brunswick and Canada in general, like, you know, or like eventually kind of reach the truth and reconciliation process, that will make it a lot better for everyone. As an immigrant, sometimes I'm just like sitting there and thinking, and I'm like, how do I have more rights than some Indigenous people? And it's something that I feel like very guilty about, although like I don't really have anything to deal with it. Like, I don't really have much influence over what rights they have versus what rights I have, like on the greater scheme at least. So I feel like if we reach truth and reconciliation, then it will get better for everyone.
Yeah, it seems like what I was about to say is already summarized here, but I'm from St. John, and we were gonna do it activism, I guess you can say, Palestine and labor and so on. I think it is actually important to start to imagine the communities, like imagine communities, through the lens of the indigenous people here. So even changing St. John to Manakwes, for example, the indigenous name, I think it could be very powerful in shaping our understanding and having it more inclusive. Because that way, I don't know, the Anglo-Saxon imaginary communities is not inclusive. So if the somehow liberal or conservative government wants to make it more inclusive, it cannot be done in the way, it has to be in the indigenous way with the understanding of making families instead of treaties. Yeah, so that's probably what we should do. We should actually change the name to indigenous. I think that's one of the steps for truth and conciliations and making it even more inclusive here.
So a little bit of a wrap up because I've gotten the 2-minute notice from the organizers. In our discussion, is there anything that we missed or anything more that you want to add or any thoughts that you weren't able to share? I know it was kind of abbreviated and to a certain extent, but is there anything else that anybody would like to share or bring up?
Just because I still remember it. And I really appreciate how New Brunswick Social Forum is changed into Social Forum Wolastokuk. So I think that's the change that we want to see next.
Thank you, yes.
All right, well, thank you so much for attending, and thank you for attending the social forum. We are having a policy conference on the 21st and the 22nd, and you're all invited to come.
The QR code is not working.
Oh shoot, the QR code on the...
Yeah, it's saying like log in as the administrator, so.
Okay, we'll take a look at that. But in the meantime, we're also happy to take your email and we can send you information about the conference. And at 1:30, the next event is as a plenary session where we're all getting together in the main room to talk about larger goals. It's a panel discussion. So hopefully you'll stay around for that at 1:30. And we want to, on behalf of our project Promise of Home, thank you very much for being here today and wish you all a very good day. Thanks so much.
Hi, I'm Matthew Wright, and I'm a volunteer with the New Brunswick Media Co-op. Today we are interviewing an author, playwright named Julie Ivanell Johnson. She's from New Brunswick and has a disability. 3 of your one-act plays have been performed in London, England, and 2 of these now are been chosen to be part of the Alabama International Fringe Festival later this month. To start off with, what are the major themes or takeaways from these plays?
They're both comedies, Matthew. One is called Attack Room. It's a comedy suspense. It takes place in a stable. And one of the protagonists and the main characters in that, 2 of them actually are disabled. One is mentally challenged, the other's physically challenged, and they become the heroes at the end of the show. They end up catching the criminal that was lurking behind the thunderstorm that came through. That's a half-an-hour show. The other one's called The Pistols Report, nothing to do with guns. It's about a young girl who's a real pistol, and she's reporting to her classroom about things that happened at her home that weekend, but because she is just a 12-year-old, she's misinterpreted a lot of things in there. And she has 2 daddies, and one of her daddies is a violinist who uses crutches and a wheelchair. And the wheelchair kind of becomes the, as well as the pistol, Geordie, the wheelchair kind of becomes the big clue at the end of the farce, where a lot of things end up happening because her daddy was in that wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Sorry. One is described as an equal play. What exactly does that mean?
That was the 3rd one that was done in 2024. So last spring, the same theater company in London, England, chose that one. It was just a 10-minute one-act. It was called Unplanned Planet. And the 4 characters in it were the 4 seasons. And they were basically talking about the problems that they were having with climate change in this time. So it was through Unplanned Planet that I found this same director who was happy to do rehearsed readings of these longer one-acts this year in London.
Okay, perfect. You mentioned before this interview, 2 of them celebrate Calgary or heroes in disabled, LGBTQ, and BIPOC communities. Can you say more about that?
Yes, I was a high school English drama teacher for a lot of years and taught in 4 different countries. And I taught inner city. I taught for quite a few years on an First Nations reservation in Montana. And because of that, I feel like I always want to make sure that I have a lot of diverse characters in my novels as well as my plays. So in the 2 plays that are going up at the Alabama International Fringe Festival, the first one, as I mentioned, Geordie has 2 daddies. And then there's also a male housekeeper who appears to be very camp and very gay, but in fact, he's straight. So I'm trying to also show that a lot of assumptions are often made about people that we know, and I don't really think we should be making those assumptions. It's hard sometimes, like, when I'm in a wheelchair, a lot of assumptions are made about me, not just about accessibility, but just assumptions that people in general make, and we all do it when you see someone or you hear someone. So I also, as well as just trying to make it a more common thing that we use characters from marginalized communities, I'm also trying to show that, look, things may not be exactly as they seem or what we hear. That's not necessarily what it really is.
Exactly, because that's one of the big beefs I've had in my journey as a person with a visible disability and at 47, but it was invisible until then. And I always found that even in the medical community, well intentioned, but if you did not fall within the quote unquote norm, they didn't think you were a part of that disability.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And for full disclosure, I have a disability that doctors aren't even trained for yet in medical school. When they found that out, I told my family doctor about it, and she looked at me and said, Gesundheit. Because, yeah, because she's never heard of it. And I gave her permission to talk to other doctors in their practice, and I was the only one they knew of.
Well, Matthew, I might have to work you into a play or a novel or something, because that is unbelievable. But having said that, I do believe it. Of course I believe it, because I think we've all, if you're in a marginalized community of any kind, you're going to experience these things all the time.
Oh yeah, exactly. And one of the things I find interesting is some of your plays being shown in Alabama. They're not exactly the most inclusive today because of Trump. And has there been any problems that you've run into because of that?
That's a great question. And it's very strange, but I actually have two connections right now with Alabama, and I never have in my life before, but I'm also doing counseling for my mental health right now. And have a counselor who is in Alabama, and the group chose him as my counselor. You can always change if you're not feeling that your counselor's a good fit. I was amazed. This man is really liberal minded. He's got all kinds of great experiences about living in Alabama. And the Alabama Fringe Festival is titled an international fringe festival. So as the promotions have been coming out more and more for it, because they're airing the digital fringe at the same time as the fringe festival itself is happening in Prattville, Alabama, and that's September 26th and 27th. So I've been really impressed with how culturally diverse all the plays that they're going to be showing appear to be, and all the different really amazing cultural events that they're going to be having physically there in Prattville, Alabama. So I don't know whether the general public's just going to be in for a big surprise. This isn't their first year. I think it's their third or fourth year of running, but they're really pushing diversity in this fringe festival, and I'm just loving seeing it happen.
Well, that's good. Yeah. As a person with a disability and a playwright from New Brunswick, how many obstacles were there for you?
I think a lot of those obstacles would not be there if my disability hadn't progressed to the point that it's at. We do live very remotely, and I think a lot of people in New Brunswick do live very remotely. But for instance, Fredericton is 2 hours south of us. Moncton's over a 3-hour drive. It's very hard for me to be in a vehicle anymore without a lot of pain. I did go to Ontario a couple years ago and do a book launch, but we had to rent a van. I had to take a lot of painkillers for the 2 days of traveling to get there. I can no longer really do events here. There are some good author events that happen in New Brunswick, and New Brunswick has some very good communities to help, especially novelists. And I would love to be part of those events, but we live remotely and I'm disabled, so that's tricky. And as far as my playwriting, my goodness, I'm sure you know that theaters in New Brunswick are few and far between. Even community theater is practically unheard of. I was lucky enough to have my musical workshop a few years ago in Florenceville. That's the first time that they've ever had something like that there. So that's an instance of the community really got behind it, and there were a lot of sponsors for the professional cast, the equity cast that we had. But as far as the audience coming in, they'd never heard of such a thing. Some of them weren't even sure what a musical was. So those are sort of some of the restrictions that are on an author playwright, I think, in the province.
Continuing with that theme, people who are looking at becoming playwrights and have disabilities, what advice would you have for them?
Well, I think probably the best thing is if you're younger than I am and you want to be a playwright, I would try to be near a city center where there is at least one theater. Community theaters, community theater groups tend to be around the cities as well. So I think in order to be involved, if you're disabled, you've got to make yourself still available somewhere where you can be a part of a group. And if you're going to pitch to an artistic director, of course, it's much easier to do things nowadays by emails, by Zoom. Anything virtually is great for the disabled, as you know. But you have to feel that you're not really getting your pitch across to an artistic director if you're sitting hours and hours away from them and they're staring at you on a tiny little screen. I've never really felt that I was being that effective.
Oh, that sounds like a big obstacle. And are you traveling to Alabama? Or
Oh, no.
no?
No. The great thing about this part of it is that they're showing the two London rehearsed readings that happened in April. They are showing both of those because they were recorded professionally. They're showing them virtually. So they have a number of plays that they're showing virtually as part of the Fringe Festival. So that's exciting because it can all just happen digitally. And Thornhill Theatre Space is the sponsor of that. So I want to make sure that they get a little salute.
Absolutely. Have you seen a fundamental acceptance of plays that are from the perspective of a person with a disability?
I think that this is certainly becoming more less rare, shall we say. I wouldn't want to say it's becoming more common, but it's certainly becoming less rare, I think. There's a book behind me, Nothing Without Us, that an Ottawa publisher put out 2018, 2019. Renaissance Press put it out, and they have been part of a pretty good wave in Canada for promoting not just disabled authors, but ensuring that the protagonists are also disabled, whether physically, mentally, emotionally, or all. So that book was nominated the year it came out for an Aurora Award, and then they had a second sequel to the anthology, and it did win the Aurora Award because they were saying, like, you've really set a precedent here to I can't remember the exact motto, but it was something about, we're tired of seeing the disabled as the sidekicks for the protagonist, or the victims. So in this case, all of the characters, the main characters, have disability.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a part of a coalition called New Brunswick with People with Disabilities, and that's one of the things that we always say, nothing without us. Are you have any upcoming plays that you're currently working on?
Oh, thank you for asking that. People hardly ever ask that. I am working on another one act that I'm hoping to start submitting in the next few weeks. It is about the main character is a homeless person in a train station, and she feels that she has a lot of information to offer. So every time someone gives her a little bit of change, she offers them a little tidbit of something that might help them along the way. But at the same time, the train station PA system is doing their usual announcements. But I've tried to write it so that those announcements can also be taken symbolically, so that we can start kind of looking at the world from the perspective of the homeless character, as well as just so many things around us are symbolic and giving us messages, and we're just not paying attention. For instance, I just noticed that my flowers behind me are wilting. Well, that is symbolic of the season right now. We're coming into autumn. That's symbolic of my life, kind of. That's how things are just working out for me. And it's also very symbolic of the world right now. So I'm actually kind of happy to see my flowers up there wilting.
Yeah, it's kind of a metaphor for life sometimes. Anyway.
Certainly right now.
Yeah. Anything else you would like to add?
Well, we talked about September 26th and 27th being the Alabama International Fringe Festival. There are a lot of plays being shown virtually that weekend, going up on the Thornhill Theater Space YouTube channel in conjunction with the festival. But I'd also like to mention that this Saturday, is that the 20th, I think, is New Brunswick wide Buy an NB Book Day. So I will be doing a lot of promotions online and on social media for that as well. And Excellence New Brunswick has both of my books, and they're very, very supportive of all New Brunswick local businesses, authors, artists, crafters. So I would encourage anybody to go and look up Excellence NB online.
I've been speaking with Julie Ivanell Johnson, an author, playwright, and poet with a disability from New Brunswick. Thanks to New Brunswick Media today, September 17th. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Nenemi dijdan eldajik, apak dedemi dijwadauk diwo. Weshkwi dajik niskame hejwola det nigeya. Bekure dema dij nautikpa, weha ya yowe. Weha, 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 ya, weha, weha, ya, weha, ya, yo, way. I invite you now to try that part. Weha, 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 ya, weha, weha, ya, weha, ya, yo, way. I'm going to do one more round, and when you feel that you want to really feel the vibration of that chant, because that's not words, it's just chant. Stand up, okay? And so the first verse, Weshkwidajik Nogama, our family is coming. And they're going to be so happy. Like, they're going to be so happy to see each other. The next verse is Weshkwidajik, they're coming. Our extended family is coming from all over. And they know how to get here. They know the way here, and they're going to make a path, a road to get here. These are prophecy songs. And then the last one is Weshkwidajik Niskamij, our ancestors are coming. They're coming here. And they're going to beat on them drums all night until the morning comes. Because we had to hide our ceremonies in the safety of night. Okay. So let's try that again. Weshkwidajik Nogama Hola Det Nigeya Mawi Yomi Weskawazink Well does Wolastokuk Digna Hey Weshkwidajik Ngigama Hola Det Nigeya Nenami Dijdan Eldajik Apak Dedimi Dijwadauk Diwo Weshkwidajik Niskame Hola Det Nigeya Bekwid Demadij no Tikpa Weha ya yo Weha 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 ya Weha weha ya Weha ya yo Weha 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 ya Weha weha ya Weha ya yo One more time, I hope more people stand and feel it. Weha, 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 ya. Weha, weha, ya. Weha, ya, yo, weha, 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 ya. Weha, weha, ya. Weha, ya. Wow. Oh, thanks, guys. I just got it.
Okay, we're done. So, no, that was amazing. Thank you, Stephanie, Sogi Steph. Thank you all for being here. For the folks who have been here the last couple of days, this has been an amazingly rich time together. And this event, entitled The Many versus the Money, is the time to maybe spend some of those riches and share them amongst ourselves and make them go out into the world for real impact beyond this beautiful community. My name is Gretchen Fitzgerald. I'm Executive Director of Sierra Club Canada Foundation, and I'm based in Jabuktuk, the Big Harbor in Halifax, next province over. And I really want to thank Stephanie for welcoming us and reminding us that we are here next to the beautiful flowing river, and Grand Chief Ron Tremblay and Chief Hugh Akaji and Gay Sutanamuk, who've been here the last 2 days, for really guiding us and connecting us to those who have lived on these lands for tens of thousands of years. And yeah, I just want to say, as a settler, I am trying to do my best to learn and to humbly respect the peace and friendship treaties that were signed those hundreds of years ago by my ancestors, and to do my part to to heal relationships and our relationship to the land. As some of you know who've been here the last couple of days, Sierra Club is a national grassroots charity, and we center ourselves in empowering people to protect, restore, and enjoy nature. And we are currently championing two kind of radical concepts, the rights of nature and energy democracy, and which is seeking to ensure that we take responsibility for defending and restoring nature, and that communities benefit from the energy revolution that I personally believe is at hand. And we are currently engaged in New Brunswick in challenging a new gas plant in the Tatramar area. So if you want to know more about that, happy to speak with you later. I want to acknowledge and thank the colleagues and friends who are co-sponsoring and co-hosting this and collaborating on this event. So ACORN New Brunswick, the Canadian Union of Postal Workers, the Canadian Association for the Protection of the Environment, CAPE, Coalition for Responsible Energy Development, the Conservation Council of New Brunswick, the Council of Canadians, the New Brunswick Media Co-op. Everyone should take up a membership in the co-op today, just from what I've heard the last couple of days. And I specifically want to point out that Courtney Morrison is here, actually from the Council of Canadians, going to be helping with some of this session today. The New Brunswick Anti-Shale Gas Alliance, NBLUNG, Seniors for Climate Fredericton chapter. And just a run of the agenda, and we are a bit behind time, but we're going to be having a wonderful panel discussion here, which Tracy Glynn is going to be facilitating from the NB Media Co-op. And then after that, we're going to have breakout sessions for folks to share your reflections on what you heard and how it builds on the work that I know all of you are doing in your communities. And then we're going to have what's called a barnstorming session, where people can raise your hand and propose ideas or sign up to be part of ideas to make the change that we all know needs to happen, and we know we can all be part of. So the title of today's event is The Many versus the Money. And I guess it's pretty obvious to many of us here who the money is, but who is the many is something that often is left unsaid. And I think by naming and identifying who is benefiting from the systems that are in place now, whether it's the oil and gas industry, or large corporations that are taking our data without our consent or our knowledge. There's many ways that you can think about the money, but I think we also, and identify it and call it out, but I think we also have to collectively identify the many, which is all of us in this room, and I personally include in the many the more than human world, so the trees, the critters, the other species that really are suffering under the current conditions and need to be honored, respected, and our relationship to them to be restored. So yeah, I guess without further ado, I'm going to introduce Tracy Glynn, who really needs no introduction, although I do have one for her on my phone because she does so many things. So Tracy here is an activist scholar based in Fredericton, unceded Wolastokuk territory. Her activism and scholarship was focused on supporting communities affected by resource extraction, migration, and border policies, and inadequate healthcare access. As the forest campaigner for the Conservation Council of New Brunswick in 2006 to 2018, Glynn worked on forestry policies, including community forestry and banning glyphosate spraying in forestry. Her community service has been recognized with several awards in Fredericton and in St. John's, Newfoundland. She's the National Director of Operations and Projects for the Canadian Health Coalition and holds regular teaching appointments, as many of you will know, at St. Thomas University and the University of New Brunswick. And I believe one of her panelists is one of her students. Tracy recently conducted research on migrant workers in Atlantic Canada, refugee integration in Southeast Europe, and New Brunswick rotational workers in resource extraction. And she also recently did research for RAVEN, the Rural Action and Voices of the Environment, which another of our panelists was very much involved in, including a photo voice project with rural environmental activists in New Brunswick. And she is coordinating, on top of all that, coordinating editor of New Brunswick Media Co-op. So thank you, Tracy. Well, thank you, Gretchen, and we should all give a hand to Gretchen who pulled this together. So I'm now going to introduce the panelists, and I have 4 questions for them, and they're gonna answer them. So Nicola Taylor, who's right next to me, and also I think many of the people here require no introduction. Many of you know them, but Nicola Taylor is the chair of New Brunswick Acorn since 2022, June 2022, and she's also an Acorn Canada National Board member since June 2024. She came to New Brunswick in 2018 as a newcomer with her family. Nicola has been involved with New Brunswick Acorn since she was reno-evicted in February 2022 and has been fighting for better rights for low, moderate income people ever since. I think we should all thank Nicola. Yeah, tenants' rights are much better today, largely thanks to Nicola and the work that Acorn is doing. Stephanie Francis, or as some of you know her as Sugi, I know I was going to get it, Sugi Steph, which means auntie in Mi'kmaq, is a registered social worker, recognized cultural carrier and knowledge keeper, a Canadian Council for Arts storyteller from Sitansis First Nation, or St. Mary's First Nation, and you can check out her website at, is it spiritfirstapproach.ca, so spiritfirstapproach.ca. Susan O'Donnell, doesn't require introduction, but co-founder and member of the core group of the Coalition for Responsible Energy Development in New Brunswick, CRED-MB, also teaches a course on energy and society in the Sustainability and Environmental Studies program at St. Thomas University, where she's also a lead investigator of the CEDAR project. And she's also on the board of the ME Media Co-op, and I could go on. George Nickerson has been involved in local, provincial, and national labor movement as a member of the Canadian Union of Postal Workers for over 40 years. And as we know, the postal workers are on strike, so please go out and support them. Yeah, he's held many positions within his union, both as a volunteer and as a staff member. He's a skilled educator, having developed and facilitated several courses. I know George has been a guest speaker in my class a few times. He has served in the positions of CUPW's Local 54 president and grievance officer. Okay, so just going to the questions. So the first question I have is, who are the many you fight for? Nicola?
So ACORN Canada, or Association of Community Organisation for Reform now, that's why we're at ACORN. We are a multi-issue mass-based community and tenant union made up of low to moderate income people, and the purpose of that union, or our union, is to give power to people so that they can have their voices heard even at the highest levels of the country. So we're representing, people who often feel they don't have a voice or can't speak about issues that affect them predominantly, whether it's tenants, banking, fair banking, or now energy poverty as we're fighting. Do you want me to pass it on?
Okay. As Tracy said, I'm George Nickerson with the Canadian Union of Postal Workers, and I'm going to bring kind of a labor perspective to this. So the people that I represent would be postal workers, obviously, but something that's made me so proud of my union is that we're a very socially conscious union, very progressive. We put not only our needs, which obviously we're going to be pushing for those, but the needs of many. And as I look out around here, I'm just so impressed with the diversity in this room. I know I've been to or sat on quite a few panels, and 20 years ago there would have been 5 old white men sitting up here, and there just would not have been the diversity that's in the room now. So While I do represent labor, I like to think that we represent the many, as we like to call it. Although, and I will talk about it later a little bit, I wonder if we're actually the many at times. So, and I'll expand on that after.
So the Coalition for Responsible Energy Development is concerned with the development of energy systems. And I guess when I think about who are the many, certainly if you go on our homepage, you'll see that one of our concerns is that we're living outside the boundaries of a finite planet. And I think that's a very important point. And so what we're doing with our use of energy, our increasing use of energy, obviously mostly fossil fuels, concerns about nuclear energy, but we cannot just replace the energy with renewables and continue our way of living in the sense of, you know, just rampant resource extraction and consumerism, etc. So by the limits of the finite planet, I think when we think of the many, it's also the biosphere, all the creatures, as well as humanity and everything in it that is being destroyed by our rapid use of energy. Thank you.
It's hard for me. We received a list of questions to contemplate, and the way they were written, it didn't jive with my worldview. And Tracy understands that because she was my teacher one time. And that's the thing that I've had to do my whole life, is try to figure out what are they talking about and what are they doing, what are those issues? Because my people have never been a part of those conversations. So one time, it was just white old men up here and probably a bunch of white men there with the money, which is funny because I was like, ooh, the Sierra Club. It's a bunch of rich old white ladies who love the forest and are looking for something to do, that they want to, you know, like, not as if you got nothing to do, but to move these things ahead, like they're very passionate. And that's a privileged place in society, that you can come together in a Sierra Club. It's almost like you're that 2% or that 1%, but of the hippies, not the business people. So yeah, this has been, I've never been invited to these spaces because I'm not white. And I'm not old, but I'm getting there, I'm just hiding them. So yeah, so right away, those things were really weird. So take that into consideration, especially what George said, the diversity here. So for me, if I'm kind of stuck or I'm too passionate or I shut down, just remember this is new for me. Not that I haven't spoken to government people and ministers and officials, but to sit down and talk to this other community that I wanted to be in contact with. So yeah, when I speak, I hope to God that I remind myself that I'm speaking for those many who can't speak. Those people that are continuing to live in a country where there's a current ongoing genocide. Let that sink in, please. So to be able to talk about this, it's almost like a little pipe dream. Like this is a fantasy, just to talk about a world where these are the only things we talk about when we're just trying to survive, okay? Do you want me to read this book to kind of give context? Because it has to do with the environment and it has to do with all of it, just to make sure that we're on the same page. And this is why I put the book in writing, because I wouldn't, because we have an oral history and oral society, and I wanted to have value on that. So for 7 years, when I came up with this story, I would only say it orally, and people kept bugging, so now you can have your piece of sooty stuff for $24.99, just kidding. So, but I was invited to Health Canada when they used to have NIHB or First Nations Inuit Health Branch. Now it's just ISK. So they're even trying to wipe us away a little bit like that. And this evaluator wanted to know how we do what we do, because she wanted to kind of work with us, but really from a place of like the common ground. So this is, I get this, so this kind of reminds me of that time. And you may not get it after you're, you know, barnstorming, but at least this is the start. And this is awesome. It makes me excited. So one night, you know, she put in 18-hour days. I clock out at 12. I'm like, man, I don't want to give the government, you know, more than 7.5 a day, but I'll clock out after 12 hours a day. And she just kept going. So one day she's so excited. It's like about 8:30 at night. We're waiting for the bus. And she says, what's the answer? And she wanted to know answer to everything, whether it was about environmental issues with us, the environmental racism, or any of it. Even the fracking that's going on, to the 60s scoop, centralization, all of it. And the millennial scoop, because we still have our babies being taken at astronomical rates, because there was already an environment that was set up and created for failure. That's what genocide does. Once upon a time, over 500 years ago, a man came across a flock of beautiful birds. He thought these birds were lovely and admired them for their beautiful songs, the way they hopped about, and the graceful way they flew in their migratory patterns. He admired them for all of their beauty. These birds innately knew how to do bird-like things in their natural environment. They knew when the weather was going to change, and they knew when danger was approaching. They knew when the season was right for reproduction, and when it was a right time to go out and seek food. They also knew when it was time to migrate and where they would go in their family groups. They didn't rely on any other bird to tell them, or any other creature for that matter. However, over time, the man's descendants began to see these birds as a nuisance and began to exterminate so many of its species relations. Not all the birds were extinguished. Some were captured and placed in cages. Some cages were large, some were small. These birds were eventually provided bird feed that was manufactured in factories, which was nothing like the food they were accustomed to foraging and eating. The cages, or some would prefer to call them sanctuaries or reserves, were not conducive to allow the birds to fly, to migrate, or even do their little bird hops. Many of these birds would be transferred when they hatched from their eggs, forcibly removed from their mama bird. Thus, they eventually started to forget how mama birds feed their baby birds and how papa birds teach their young how to fly and to hunt. Instead, they were placed with animals like rats or owls. Sometimes the lucky ones would be placed among the chickens in their domesticated coops. Even though they were rats, owls, or chickens, to keep them company or to keep an eye over them, they were simply birds in an alien environment. Sometimes, well, over time, there were many obstacles and traumas put before these birds, and sometimes, or many times, their wings were clipped, their beaks were snipped off, and their claws, they were declawed. And there were even times that the man ran experiments to see how resistant these birds were. And it was commonplace to have other researchers borrow these birds to analyze and run their experiments as well. It was difficult to even see which of these acts was the most heinous. There were so many rules imposed on these birds. Some birds would get sterilized, while other birds were kicked out of the sanctuaries because they became friends with different types of birds. It was a true miracle that these birds survived the harsh environments and treatments. Now, over a span of over 100 years, the man made many rules dictating how these birds would, could, or should live. There were even rules that if other men tried to advocate for these birds, they would become imprisoned themselves. One day, though, a young woman was watching her bird, and she saw the ones on television. She started doing the comparison, and then realized that what her great-great-grandfather did was in fact an atrocity. She quickly tried to reconcile all that had been done. She decided to open the cage door and allow the bird to enjoy its life in freedom. Just go out in nature. Sadly, the bird did not budge. It sat there in the cage. The young woman could not understand why it would not leave the cage. Could it be that he likes the cage? Could it be he's too lazy to fly anywhere? That's it, he's lazy. Could it be he's too lazy to find food and would rather have her feed him twice a day? Could it be that he loved that she cleaned the cage and did repairs when she saw fit, albeit there was never a budget for repairs? Could it be that he loved being served fresh water every day? Given that 2/3 of these cages had unsafe drinking water at some point in the past decade, that probably wasn't what was keeping him there. Ooh, could it be because he felt safer with all the laws that were made specifically for him and other birds like him? Maybe not, considering that man is only starting to be public about his part in the living conditions of these birds, the health disparities, the more likelihood of becoming missing or murdered if it's a female bird. the high rates of birds jumping out of their cages and plummeting to their death, and the high rates of baby birds being apprehended and placed in little boxes with new owners. Did you know that there are more baby birds now that are being removed from their cages and placed in boxes with new owners now than any other given time in history? Surely her bird didn't want to see its baby birds being plucked from the nest in the cage. So she just asked him, "Bird, why is it that you stay in your cage? I would really love for you to leave the cage right now and enjoy the rest of your life as a free bird. I can only think that if you don't leave the cage, then you must be happy here." The bird replied, "What? Why are you asking me? Do I even have a say? I don't have an answer today, but I know deep down that this cage isn't for me. I can barely remember the stories of the different trees upon my great-grandmother would build her nest. I've forgotten the songs my people would sing. I can hardly remember what food Creator made for me to eat so that I would be strong and healthy. My wings are clipped, so I can't fly anywhere today. Well, my beak and my claws have been filed down and damaged so bad that it makes it more challenging to defend or feed myself. I don't know what the answer is," he said, looking ashamed with his head down. Before she left, the bird hollered out, "Wait, please! Don't forget me. I'm going to think really, really hard about what's wrong with me, okay? I'm so sorry I can't do any of these things today. I can't do any of these things right now. But maybe tomorrow I can do some of these things. Please come back. Just don't forget me, okay? I'm so sorry I can't do these things." Well, the next day and the days after, the young woman continued to ask the bird if he was ready. It took him a great while, and then one day he remembered. "Hey, lady, guess what? I think I know the answer." You see, the young woman was consistent, and she showed remorse, and there was something genuine about her after 18-hour days. The bird saw that he could trust her after a long time of daily visits and talks. He asked the young woman if she could pull together all the research her people had done, all the historical accounts that her people documented, and to start the process of extinguishing all the rules that were harmful to his bird people. In order for it to be explicit, it's not hunting season. He then shared with the young woman that after days and days, weeks, months of prayer, he finally started to remember his songs. He was able to communicate with other birds, which then allowed them to remember the old stories which were passed down from flock to flock. You see, one of the elders had told this bird that the teachings would come back because it was in his blood. He had blood memory. He then shared with the young woman that his wings were starting to repair themselves with exercise and short trips outside of the cage. Although he knew he would probably get lost at his few first attempts at his old migration patterns, he still planned a few short trips because he was hopeful that his baby birds would be able to make longer trips than what was ever possible for him. The bird started asking for different food. He then later started foraging for these foods himself. He would ask the young woman for pictures and information about the things he was remembering. The young woman did what she could to assist the bird and support him. She even taught him how to look up these things himself and how to document his progress and map things out using a logic model. Although the bird currently stays in the cage, the young woman has learned that it was wrong of her to ask him what the answer was. The bird did not create his circumstances, nor would he be able to resolve them overnight. The young woman learned that through patience, trust, respect, and understanding, it was possible to forge a meaningful relationship with the bird. She was even seen last week doing a crow hop at a local gathering while the other birds sang their songs. She was a little clumsy, but her heart was in the right place. And that was my way of understanding reconciliation. That was my way of understanding where I needed to be and to look at the big picture and understanding that we have to look at the big picture. So who am I fighting for? You know, I'm fighting for that bird. I'm fighting for its relatives. I'm fighting for those trees that bird requires to build his nest on. I need to fight to save that water that gives us negative ions. Thousands of them. I need to fight to protect those forests that are always trying to help us by giving us those same negative ions that we need for our relaxation, for clarity of thought, to live in balance. And thank God for those ones that have been sharing their knowledge. And so today I'm trying to think about, and so I like the activist academic title. So I'm like, yeah, I'm like an activist therapist. So this is what I'm going to do, and I finally decided, and I've been praying on it, to send like-minded people into my life to make my life a cakewalk, my purpose a cakewalk. Because we can't do it alone, and sometimes when you're the only one talking about it, you look like a cuckoo bird. And nobody wants that. And I do that enough on my own about everything. So who am I fighting for? The next 7 generations. Because if I don't leave something in this lifetime, then I've done my ancestors, I've disappointed them. My ancestors, so many thousands of years ago left. Mi'kmaq, Wolastokuk, Wabanaki, and they went on a migration, the Great Migration, to where food grows on water, out to the Great Lakes. That song I sang about they're coming back, our extended relatives, they're coming back now. They're all coming back, and when they come home and they say they're Anishinaabe, or if they say Cree or Assiniboine, hey, welcome home, brother, welcome home, sister, because they're coming back. So who I'm fighting for, I guess, is my ancestors and all the ones that they were thinking about for today. And that's why they gave us heads up. And they gave us teachings about the trees, how they're our brothers and sisters. They gave us teachings about how those little creepy crawlies, they're our helpers, and they're always teaching us. Now, would you go and kill your teacher? No. We're always looking, to learn. And so yeah, until right this minute, I didn't know how to answer it, but now I know. I am speaking up for my ancestors to make sure that their prayers weren't ignored, and that we still remember that they made that great sacrifice, and they told us to stay on that eastern door. They didn't tell us the ones who went. My ancestors who stayed, they said we stayed here on the East Coast to wait for the pale-skinned brother to come to the shores. And they knew that was going to be good. And they knew from the other prophecy that there was going to be another set of pale-skinned brothers coming over. And then travesty was going to happen. That all the things you're reading about now, my ancestors said all them things that would happen. And my ancestors, my great somebody, stayed here, and they made the decision for my bloodline to be here to open that door and to suffer all the things that came. Because today, they knew we would be sitting here together and we would learn together. And that there would be a key with Indigenous people here from Turtle Island. And that because we all carry a piece to the puzzle. Every relative that comes home from out west, and we come together in teaching lodges, and we share, and we do that not for esteem and prestige. We do that because it's love. It all comes down to love. And that's what Medewan Teaching Lodge does. It's love. It's about teaching about love and about connection and humility. And the saddest part is that the two-leggeds thought they were above all of creation. And so now we just have to learn how to bring it back down. But in the meantime, who's suffering? A lot of people are suffering. A lot of two-leggeds are suffering. But the trees, those ones that have been holding space for us all this time. So whether it's the ash tree, or the maple tree, or that tobacco plant, or that cedar tree, we need people to speak for them because we can't be here without them. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. That was incredibly rich, and I just want to remind folks there will be time to reflect in the breakout sessions on what was shared, and thank you very much. We just have 10 more minutes with these folks, so yeah.
Well, maybe what I'll do, I think people want to hear about the successes. Maybe what maybe we can go there, like what and how and what you think how we can be successful against the moneyed interests. Does that make sense? That question.
How will be?
What are your successes, or how do you think we'll be successful against the money?
Okay, so based on what we do at Acorn, we're successful through direct action, targeting whether it's landlords or corporations through direct action. We don't have much to do with policy. We're not policy makers or anything, but we like to, through our actions, through our members, we like to think that we can influence, people that are in power, because the many of us that are together, we are 188,000 members across the country, so the many of us that are together fighting for rights that many people often think they don't have, who are in low to moderate income communities. They come out, they fight for the change they want to see within their communities, and that's the power, and that's empowering for them to do. Me being one, so I think that's where we fight the people with the money, if that makes sense, through direct action. And we have been very successful provincially. We got the rent cap after almost 5 years of fight, 4 years, because it came less. Thank you. We're also now fighting for better rent control in place, because rent cap is not enough to stop people from being displaced. Landlords can still and do and are using any way that they can to displace tenants, whether it illegally through illegal ways that they know are not allowed. So we want to make that a very robust system to eventually bring in vacancy control eventually, although this provincial government have said that's not what their intentions are. We're also now being successful on a federal level with the fair banking that was announced this year, where they are going to cap, as of March 2026, they're going to cap the NSF fees to $10, because this is a cycle that, this cycle keeps people broke, keeps people poor. They don't have money in their bank, so the bank then charges them, what, $38, I believe it was. They go overdrawn, and they constantly get charge this money until and it's just keeping them like that. So we fought hard. This was a long fight for about 10 or more years to get that $10 cap on NSF fees, and now we're fighting on payday loans, predatory loans, to bring down that percentage as well, because these people know how to get those who don't have money, who feel they don't have a voice. They know how to keep them grounded where they are afraid to speak out and come out for themselves. So joining organisations like Acorn, where it's the people power, it really is in our hands. We fight for what the changes we want to see within our communities. Our members have a say on that. It's not from the staff, it's not from that. It's what we see is affecting us, and then we come out and we fight like that. So I would answer that like that.
Okay, and how do we take this on? Well, I think the first thing that we have to do is we actually have to become the many. And as I look around this room, here we are, we're starting it, right? They foster those divisions amongst us. They always want to talk about religion, race, sexual orientation, and saying, oh, you're different, or this and that. And we have to all realize that we're human beings. And together we can actually fight this. I just look at a couple examples right now with our strike, because we're not only taking on the money now, the money has got the government doing everything they want for them. The CEO of Canada Post makes more money than the Prime Minister of Canada. He's paid more than the Prime Minister of Canada. And he stood in front of the press and the government and everybody else, and he said, since I took over Canada Post in 2019, I believe it was, we've lost $3.8 billion. And what does the government say? Did the government say you're fired? No, they said, well, we should probably give you a bonus so that you'll stick around a little longer. It's obvious that they're trying to tank the corporation. They're trying to take away a service, a right that we have in Canada. Although I go back to George Carlin back in the 80s, he talked about it, rights and privileges. He says, if they can be taken away, it's not a right, it's a privilege. And that's how they've got us thinking. And we really, really need to get past all of that. I also look at the way that Canada Post is dealing with this strike. We walked out a week ago Thursday, and this time, and I've never heard of this in any labor dispute ever, Canada Post is still paying us if you're on vacation. I was on vacation last week. I'm getting a full paycheck for last week, right? But what does that do? It makes me think, well, you know, would make most people think, yay, they're being nice to me, right? But what I see is they're saying, oh, now you're different than that person. And that person saying, well, how come he's getting full pay and I'm not, right? Just another way to sow those seeds of dissent amongst us. And again, like I said, I look in this room and I'm just so thrilled and excited that, you know, we're coming together. And yeah, maybe there's only, I don't know, 75, 80 people in here. But that 75 or 80 is going to turn into, hopefully when we do this again next year, it's going to be 150 people in this room at the end. And we really can do this. It's going to rely a lot on communication amongst ourselves. And real communication. I always say when people say, oh, I'm going to go talk to this person, right? Well, if you're talking to somebody, that means you're not listening to what they say. You have to talk with people. And I'm a bit of a word nerd, and I'm always correcting people on that, right? Because, I mean, just think back to when you were a kid and your parents said, oh, your dad's going to give you a talking to when he gets home. Was it ever a good thing? Certainly wasn't in my history. It was never a good thing when I was going to get a talking to. But when my parents would take the time to talk with me, I felt like I was part of that decision-making process. I felt like I belonged there. So those types of things are what we have to sow amongst ourselves. We have to start communicating. We have to start listening better. And the best way to listen, and I'll leave it with this because I'm sure there's another question coming where I can... Yeah, okay. Oh, I lost it already. How's that, huh? That's why old white guys shouldn't be all sitting up here all the time. We forget stuff. We need other people here to help us. Listening to understand. That is crucial. What happens is somebody's talking with us and they're saying something and we're already thinking in our head, how am I going to respond to that? But we haven't actually heard what they've said. We haven't understood what they've said yet unless you wait. Get all of that into you and then you can reply. If you're replying without first hearing the whole thing, you're not actually replying with what they want to hear. So I would say the best way for us is to continue to do things like this, bring ourselves together, and let's start concentrating on our commonalities instead of our differences, because that's what they're doing. They keep sowing that, keep sowing those seeds, put it into them, get them thinking about, oh, I'm angry at this person, I'm angry at that person, and we're not being angry at the right people. It's happening on our strike right now. We are a divided union right now. A lot of people didn't want to go back out again. That fight has to be won before we can get on with the real fight that we're having. So that's where we've got to do it. We've got to communicate better with each other.
Thanks, George. We'll see about next year. Okay. I think the important thing in the energy field when we're thinking about energy systems is it's much bigger than New Brunswick. And where we've had successes is reaching outside of New Brunswick. I mean, obviously we work with groups in New Brunswick, but when I think the two big industries we're fighting are the nuclear industry, my favorite, the nuclear industry and the fossil fuel industry. And these fights are international and they're big. So we're very involved with Climate Action Network Canada. We meet with them regularly. We do lots of actions together. We, sign petitions together, whatever, because these are groups, national groups. Like, we don't have any staff. We're all volunteers. So we work with the bigger groups across Canada and, put our name down for everything. If a letter goes to the Prime Minister or the Minister, Cred NB is on that letter. Our name is out there, petitions, whatever. Certainly for the nuclear industry, we've had a lot of success working with groups internationally as well. And then there's experts. Gordon Edwards was here earlier. Some of you were in his session. There's a number of experts that we've worked with and drawn on both internationally, nationally, et cetera. So I think, you know, depending if you define the enemy as an industry that has a reach outside of New Brunswick, there's lots of opportunities to engage outside. I mean, there's, you know, lots of other things too, but that hadn't been mentioned yet. So I think allies outside of the province are really important to tap into. Thanks.
Speaking of allies, it's Treaty Day, Peace and Friendship Treaty. They're all celebrating in Jabuktuk today, this weekend. And just so you know, yeah, listening. It was never the Europeans' good part. In 1749, the first Peace and Friendship Treaty that was tried to push along, chief member to it, oh no, Chief Jean-Baptiste Cope, he tore it up right in front of them. You don't ever hear about that because they weren't listening. So for me, a win, was that the question? What are the wins? That me and Kisatanamuk are invited here. That's a huge win, you guys. Another win for what I've been doing is from when I was young, taking kids and spending time with them because I knew they were our future. And I didn't know the whole story about growing up. When you're growing up in, so basically we're like refugees in our own country, okay? Where we're not hearing about our history. We're not hearing about where we sat at the table. We're not hearing about, yeah, we were one of the original stakeholders to this land. And this is why we are unceded, unsurrendered. So, the first win, thank God, Chief Baptiste Cope agreed, what, in 1752, unceded, unsurrendered territory. So that's the first win in 1752 when they came out with that Peace and Friendship Treaty. Because we have, and recognizing that we have a connection to this land for time immemorial. Our scrolls came out of hiding last year, and they were brought out and they were shared last year, or was it the year before, in Manitoba. And guess how old those scrolls were that our relatives took with them on the way out? They carbon dated them 40,000 years. There's no denying. And so a win would be the Delgamuukw case, where oral history, that we could use that. Those are wins, and we need to go back and remember those wins, because we have building blocks everywhere. So there's lots of wins. You just have to find out. And there's been a lot of division, just like what they did to George. Just messing around. It's all a lot of psychological warfare now, really messing you around. We know about psychological warfare in our reserves. We have over 600 cages across Canada. That's not even counting the Métis, the real ones, the ones that we had to camp out on the side of the road, and it was a privilege for them to camp on the side of the road. No, it's a right to live. So some of those things, 1996, when the Royal Commission of Aboriginal People came out, that was a little win for us. Because it's like we're part of the flora and fauna of this Turtle Island. And it makes me sad that there's still a lot of spaces who don't want to recognize that, because it's just a bunch of, it's too much of a headache. Just like that bird in a cage. We can't figure it out overnight, so we don't even want you at the table. Hurry up and fix yourselves or you can't come and talk. The success for me, personally, as to this step, is that I gave birth to a son. And it wasn't while we lived in a cage. That when I birthed my son and I raised, and he was able to be in a sweat lodge in the ways that we prayed, which was surrounded by like all natural, historical kind of, like from the past. The past is our future. It's our present. It's all right here. And he's an evidence of that. That he's still alive and he's not in jail. That he's healthy. That's a big success for me. Because what happens when you're stuck in that cage, you don't even have a chance. And so for me, the big success is now I got that stupid BSW beside my name and RSW that I could afford to register myself. And now I'll add all them alphabets to my name because I know this society values them. And that's the only reason I went and got that stuff. So thank you, Tracy. Because I wanted to know, what do they value? So my whole life, I've been trying to understand. How do we understand in a different way? How do I listen in a good way? And guess where we get that? Guess where I'm freaking learning it again for the first time, second time, third time in my life? In the woods. To listen. We have 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 holes for our nose, 1 mouth. And the elders always say that's why. And this is how we learn. There's ways of listening, ways of learning. And sometimes in this fast-paced world, we want reports to say, yep, here's my measurement grade, here's my... Nope. But when I can take these kids, a great niece, so my brother's granddaughter, in the woods, and they say, Sugi, look at this. When I can take kids out there to ceremony in Bridgewater, to a land back site that was given to Skijanuma, and there's big ceremony. People from all across Turtle Island come over. I'm like, oh, that's a success. These old, really hippie, rich white people felt so in love with this land that they knew what it meant because they felt it, because it used to be run by monks before too. And they sought out an indigenous group that could be the protectors and the stewards of that. And once they heard the elders, so Janie Meter came and they all came there, and they were like, this feels right. So that's a win. When we can go to the woods and we can remember again. And we can remember right from back to the beginning, because we're the embodiment of all our relations, because you have ancestors too. So that's a win for me, is when the kids say, Stugi, can we go to Dunbar Falls? Because I told them about the negative ions and how we got way too many, and the woods and the forest and the falls and the birds and the trees will help us. So we can't even make any decisions going forward without thinking about how we're going to impact them. And we're just learning too, so yeah, just be patient. That's my win.
Thank you. Thank you all. I'm going to now hand it back to Gretchen.
Yes, and speaking of listening and learning, it's now your turn to go to the tables around here and speak with other members of the community, maybe someone you haven't spoken to yet, to talk about how what you just heard is impacting you, and yeah, and then we'll reconvene and do the barnstorming. So yeah, and thank you so much. And I do want to say, like, I wrote those questions, so I am learning, and we will improve as we go, because I think that is one of the commitments you can make as a non-Indigenous person, is to learn and not further the cages. So thank you for making that comment about how it didn't work. So.
Okay, well, this will wrap up our live webcast from the social forum at Wolastokuk. Thanks for tuning in today, and thanks for bearing with us. We had some issues with the audio today, but we'll be fixing that up later. So check back to mbmediacorp.org, our online publication, for more video. We had a bunch of volunteers helping out document things that weren't included on the live stream, but we'll be posting those as well ASAP. Yeah, from everyone at the NB Media Co-op, thanks again for joining us. Thanks for tuning in, and have a great day. Bye for now.